Normally, a hit movie spawns a TV series and then that's quickly cancelled. Here is a little-seen TV series that not only spawned a trio of popular comedies, but also itself has been rediscovered and has become beloved in its own right. Police Squad. In the early 1970s, brothers Jerry and David Zucker, along with Jim Abrahams, formed a comedy theatre group called Kentucky Fried Theatre, which presented a series of zany skits and movie parodies that they later turned into the cult classic movie 1977's Kentucky Fried Movie.
Take him to Detroit. No, not Detroit!
Which combined some of their best skits with an extended parody of a kung fu movie in the classic Fistful of Yen.
This is not a charade.
A toy robot?
Eat lead, sucker.
The success of that movie led to them writing a full feature script that parodied heavily a 1950s air disaster movie, 0 Hour, which they later licensed so that the former sketch comedy writers could use that film script as a template for plotting and structure.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
That became the movie Airplane.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison?
And in 1980 the film was a big hit, but over time has also become acknowledged as one of the greatest comedy movies of all time.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Spawning an entire new genre of comedy that Abrahams Zucker mined for comedy gold and was later ruined by wave after wave of imitators. One thing that Abrahams Zucker did was to hire dramatic actors rather than comedy stars and get them to play the roles as seriously as possible.
He's coming right at us!
Apart from this guy, Airplane was a great movie and the studio wanted a sequel, which was eventually made by someone else, and while it has a decent gag or two, it's not that amazing.
What a pisser.
Also not amazing, Airplane was renamed in places like Australia as Flying High for the traditional no good reason.
This woman has to be gotten to a hospital.
A hospital? What is it?
It's a big building with patients, but that's not important right now.
After Airplane's huge success, getting studios interested in their work was much easier. Abrahams Zucker had wanted to do a parody of cop shows. They initially started writing a script as a movie, but soon turned their attention to a TV script, figuring it would be easier to write 25-minute scripts than 2-hour scripts, and filmed one of the title sequences to use in their pitch to networks.
And Rex Hamilton as Abraham Lincoln.
ABC bought the series as Police Squad, which would eventually premiere in March of 1982.
Is this some kind of bust?
Yes, it's very impressive, but we'd just like to ask a few questions.
Police Squad was a parody of hard-boiled cop shows, with the most obvious being the 50s Lee Marvin series M Squad. Police Squad's pilot was like Airplane, modelled very closely on an episode of that series.
My name is Sergeant Frank Drebin, Detective Lieutenant Police Squad, a special division of the police force.
Sergeant Frank Drebin was a typical TV detective. His narration would tie scenes together in a way much like older police series of the 50s and 60s.
I was having my car washed when I received an urgent call from downtown.
Drebin was often oblivious to his obvious stupidity, but he was in a world where everyone was that stupid.
We would have come earlier, but your husband wasn't dead then.
Leslie Nielsen, star of films like The Poseidon Adventure and Forbidden Planet, had played Dr. Rumack in Airplane, where he deadpanned his way through some of the film's best lines.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Nielsen wasn't known by the public for his wicked sense of humour, but Airplane and Police Squad, with the movie sequels later, turned him into a comedian, something that Nielsen himself encouraged, especially when he would take his fart machine with him on talk shows. While Drebin was totally clueless, he was crucially not a complete idiot or fool.
Where would you like the 50th cent?
Just bring it around to my apartment. You do deliver, don't you?
It took me 2 weeks to find Stella's apartment. She had neglected to give me her address.
And the show is played straight by all of the actors. People don't mug for the cameras here to sell punchlines, and there's no laugh track. You have to allow yourself to be sucked into the absurdities of things like this.
Cigarette?
Yes, I know.
Or this.
You're not the man I married.
How can you say that?
Because here's the man I married.
Or this.
Let's say you did go to the movies.
Okay.
You
did go to the movies.
The show will follow its own logic.
Look out!
Jokes rarely feel tacked on, but work rather organically most of the time. You know they're idiots, but it works because the other characters don't react like we would. They're of the world. No one gets exasperated with the idiocy of the other characters or the situations. The Police Squad opening titles, with the now iconic theme tune by Ira Newborn, perfectly encapsulates the genre.
Police Squad, in color.
Introduces the world of the series and the type of humour you're going to see. Each intro would end with a guest star being introduced. And then the guest star would meet a horrible end and not actually appear in the episode. The narration was reminiscent of so many dramas by producer Quinn Martin, and of course the spoken episode title wouldn't match the on-screen caption.
Dead men don't laugh.
A crime would be seen by the audience, then Drebin would confer with his boss, Captain Ed Hocken.
Married, one child. That didn't work out, so he married a grown woman.
Alan North is able to keep a straight face at all times, even when Drebin is clearly the stupider of the two.
Nice work, Frank.
What?
I sent the note to the lab. They're demanding $1 million.
Why would the lab demand $1 million?
Kidnappers made the demand, Frank.
Episodes would play with any and all conventions of the cop show genre. We'd call them police procedurals today, but they are still just cops investigating crimes.
Strange thing is, we haven't been able to find the body.
We better get back to headquarters. What time is it?
It's later than I thought.
Even by the early 80s, narrations on TV series had mostly disappeared. But shootouts and fistfights abounded, with Police Squad skewering them perfectly. Gags didn't always work, but the show was so quick-fire that if one joke died, the next one killed. The amount of detail in the visual humour probably goes some way to explaining the show's eventual longevity. Every time you watch it, you'll spot new jokes you had missed before.
I'm going over there, Frank, and try to get behind him. Cover me!
The investigations inevitably came up with the answer just before the epilogue, which would then end on another of the series' most famous parts, the fake freeze-frame ending.
Say when, Frank.
When?
Frank would often turn to his informant, a shoe shine named Johnny the Snitch, who would offer up detailed information if the price was right.
You know anything about it?
Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
With Drebin often being followed in the chair by someone like Dick Clark or Dr. Joyce Brothers.
Some kids on the show yesterday mentioned a new kind of music, ska.
Nothing but a modern offshoot of reggae. Updated white rock influences. Definitely upbeat.
Drebin would also visit the police lab for forensic analysis of clues.
These guns are identical to the one that killed Jim Johnson. Watch carefully as I test fire this gun into these videotapes of Barbara Walters' interviews.
When your lead characters are complete idiots, you sometimes need an even bigger idiot. Enter Norberg, played by Peter Lupus, who, as far as I know, was not a double murderer. Norberg was really, really clueless, often getting caught up in the minor details.
I'll just buff this down for you. Shoot.
In one episode, Frank and Ed investigate Sally Decker, who committed murder to embezzle funds from her bank to pay back her dentist.
Fire. I spent most of the afternoon trying to determine the possible angles from which the bullets might have been fired.
In another show, Frank looks into the murder of a boxer who refused to take a dive and goes undercover as a manager to take down a crooked promoter.
Mary's scarf!
We could have gotten that anywhere.
How about this? Mary's purse!
There are millions of purses like that.
How about this? Mary's toaster!
A kidnap sees Frank and Ed investigating the sounds on a ransom tape, which is of course after they had received a message from a mime.
Now down with your hands up! You'll never take me alive!
Frank goes undercover as a nightclub comic to stop a drug smuggling operation, with a fantastic riff on a famous scene from The French Connection.
Oh, I don't know, Frank. The pieces don't get much smaller.
We got it. It was in the glove compartment.
A former bomber is suspected of resuming his old habits after doing time.
Spotted the suspect and we're going in.
Roger, we copy. We can have you and you.
Not so loud.
Sorry, we didn't copy that.
Be quiet.
Roger.
And finally, in probably the greatest episode, Frank and Norberg pose as locksmiths in order to dismantle a neighborhood protection racket.
Locksmith?
No. Locksmith.
The gags fly thick and fast in every episode.
Who are you and how did you get in here?
I'm the locksmith. And I'm the locksmith.
But this one in particular is just perfect.
Look out, he's got a knife! Look out, he's got a club! Look out, he's got her
utterly, utterly perfect. Police Squad is incredibly funny, especially if you like absurd humour, but TV audiences weren't ready for that. The show was cancelled at the end of March after 4 shows had aired, with TV executives remarking that Police Squad failed because you actually needed to pay attention to the dense collection of sight gags and deadpan delivery of jokes flying so fast. It's like making a smoothie in a blender without the lid. 6 episodes were produced before cancellation, and an attempt was made to salvage the show by editing episodes into a movie with some new linking footage, but this was abandoned, and that was that. Zucker, Abrahams Zucker moved on to their next project, a movie that would combine parodies of 60s Elvis movies with old World War II films. Top Secret, starring Val Kilmer.
My name's Nick.
Nick? What does that mean?
Nothing. My dad thought of it while I was shaving.
A film that is not quite but almost as good as Airplane and Police Squad, but not quite but almost but not enough. It's full of brilliant jokes, not least because the butler from Downton Abbey gets a quarter of the best gags.
Each of us, in his own way, must learn to deal with adversity in a mature and adult fashion.
The enthusiasm for Police Squad from Zucker, Abrahams Zucker would not die.
Cigarette?
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm here to help you. Coffee?
No, thank you.
Tea?
No.
Eclair? Rum ball? Tort?
She's already killed 2 men. You better watch your step.
And in 1988, the property was translated to the big screen in The Naked Gun, subtitle From the Files of Police Squad. Most viewers of this movie would not even be remotely aware that it was based on a TV series. Leslie Nielsen, who was probably not a double murderer, was back as Lieutenant Frank Drebin of Police Squad, with actor George Kennedy now playing Ed, also unlikely to be a double murderer.
Look, Ed. He's got a picture of your wife. Ethel.
And former NFL star O.J. Simpson played Nordberg. That's right, they changed the spelling of Nordberg's character. Naked Gun borrows what it needs from the Police Squad series, like Ira Newborn's music, but with its own unique title sequence that became even more popular than that of the series. It borrows jokes galore.
Keep moving!
Frank has a love interest in the films, Jane Spencer, played by Priscilla Presley, who brings just the right amount of glamour, vulnerability and comedic timing to all 3 films in the series.
What about you?
I like cops.
The pace is a little slower since leaving pauses for cinema audiences laughing is part of the editing process of a feature film comedy, and people here do get annoyed and exasperated with Drebin.
When I see 5 weirdos dressed in togas stabbing a guy in the middle of the park in full view of 100 people, I shoot the bastards. That's my policy.
That was a Shakespeare in the Park production of Julius Caesar, you moron.
The Naked Gun is less rooted in parodying TV from decades before and more interested in being a comedy about an idiot cop.
I have a message for you from Vincent Ludwig.
I'm sorry I can't hear you. Don't fire the gun while you're talking.
It's bright and easy to get into. The jokes are still layered, though some of the setups are a little more laboured. But there are some big laughs in this film.
Nice beaver.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed.
Let me help you with that.
It's also not bound by TV standards and practices, so even with the PG-13 rating, the humour is a lot more scatological and sexual.
Here, let me demonstrate on Ed.
Huh? Why?
The film was a sizable hit. Again, one of the few times a movie based on a failed TV show was successful. Of course, a sequel was put into production.
Is this some kind of bust?
Well, it's very impressive, yes, but we need to ask you a few questions.
Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear in 1991 saw the main cast returning. The film's still very funny, perhaps not quite to the standard of the first movie, but it's still good.
I see a certain kitten still knows how to scratch. Oh, congratulations. I understand that Edna's pregnant again.
Yes, and if I catch the guy who did
Captain.
it...
Only David Zucker returned here as director and co-writer, with his brother Jerry Zucker making films such as Ghost and First Night, while Jim Abrahams made films like the 2 Hot Shots movies.
The water's over there, Frank. And he's just given us this signed confession implicating that man.
A third Naked Gun film followed in 1994, Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult. But it's okay at best.
We were supposed to be married, but on the day of our wedding, she never showed up.
Peter Siegel directed, and while it has some decent gags, there's a lot of ordinariness about the whole thing, with perhaps the climactic scenes where Frank is trying to find a bomb hidden in an envelope at the Oscars probably being the best part of the movie.
All right, drop your guns and kick them over here.
That's where the story of Police Squad and Naked Gun ends, on a not especially high note, and Naked Gun 33 1/3 feels played out, like a perfectly flat plastic disc that once upon a time was your well-loved copy of the best of UB40, and now with the grooves worn down to nothing, really is the best of UB40.
Mr. and Mrs. Drebin, please, I'm a diabetic.
The genre that had started with Airplane continued through the 80s, 90s and into the 2000s, spoofing every genre imaginable, and more often than not with Nielsen starring.
Just think, the next time I shoot someone, I could be arrested.
Lots of other people jumped on the bandwagon, making all sorts of parody films and TV series. Some okay.
Okay, remember, he's the only one who knows how to disarm the bomb, so whatever you do, hold your fire.
Sorry, Mr. Wilson.
But most were pretty ordinary, or worse, outright terrible. Like anything else with the remotest value, there has been work on a Naked Gun reboot. We'll just have to wait and see how that turns out. The 6 episodes of Police Squad were aired, forgotten, rediscovered in the wake of the success of the Naked Gun films, and the series is easily more popular now than it's ever been.
Sorry, buddy. No sex before a fight. She was a brunette hitman named Zazu Pitts. And before that, she sang backup for Aretha Franklin.
And for good reason. These are easily some of the 6 funniest episodes of television ever, plus the inspiration for 1 and let's say 3/4 movies worth of good jokes.
Oh, Frank, everyone should have a friend like you.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below or check out some of our other videos.
I promise you, if we ever come out of this alive, I'll never let my police work interfere with our love again.
Frank. Frank.